Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for being here for the webinar Turning Data into Decisions, How to Get More Out of Gaidge Analytics. We're so glad to have you guys here with us today. Now, let's talk about who's walking us through the dashboard today. Jake Sweetser, the Chief Revenue Officer at Gaidge. Jake has more than 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry, having held leadership roles at companies like Stryker and Ormco. He holds an MBA in Management of Technology and Entrepreneurship from the University of New Mexico. And since joining Gaidge in 2018, he has played a key role in helping practices harness data to drive smarter growth and performance. Jake, thank you so much for being here today. Now let's go ahead and dive in.
Hi, Malika. Thank you. And I appreciate everybody joining and taking a look at the list before we started this. I know we've got doctors, office managers, some industry colleagues, and people that we know. So, forgive me if there's any mess ups along the way. But I do appreciate you joining me for the next hour and kind of taking a look at what the industry is looking like. We'll take a deeper dive into the dashboard and we'll kind of walk through some things. First off, though, I did want to say that I did put this Broncos helmet next to me with the NFL football season getting started here in the next couple of weeks. Normally I have that cover. It's actually covering up my family. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into the presentation. One of the things that I really like to start with is kind of taking a look at some of the triple crown of leadership and what leadership means. And when I saw this formula, got this formula from our CEO, Ryan Monahan. He was in a leadership meeting a couple of years ago. And it really resonated with me. And as you start to take a look at some of those tests that we take, like Myers-Briggs, really trying to understand personalities and really starting to develop our team and what our team means to us, and really being able to go and take a look at yourself and saying, okay, what are my strengths? What am I good at? And actually, what am I not good at based on understanding who I am as an individual? And so being really vulnerable, being humble enough to admit that I'm not particularly good at something or I may not be good at something, and being transparent with my team. And so as I start to build out the rest of our teams, how do we start to build that out? And not really hiring people that are just like us, but hiring people that are going to be able to allow us to move forward and drive growth and really being authentic around who we are as not just an individual, but as an organization to be able to meet our goals. So I think it's really important as we start to take a look at data and how we manage our practices and really taking a look at that and saying, okay, who am I and what am I really good at? And how do I want to be able to manage my practice, or how do I want to manage my organizations to drive to the goals that we set? So today on our roadmap, we are going to take a look at some industry evolutions. That won't take too long, but kind of what's shifted over the last few years. We're going to take a look at Gaidge and some data sources and how we're able to gather a lot of this information that's really, really valuable, not only for a practice, but the industry to really understand what's going on. We're going to take a look at some of that market performance. We're going to take a look at a couple of rates of change models that are kind of walking us through on where we've been and where we're headed and what some of the data tells us. And then we're going to actually dive over into Gaidge, and we're going to take a look at Gaidge and kind of give some best practices on how to utilize the data, what the data means, and what are some actionable items that I can take as I start to maneuver through and take a look at the software. Now, as Malika said, we're going to be taking questions throughout. If you have a question that really pertains to something that we're talking about, throw it in the chat. If it pertains to the conversation, we're going to go ahead and answer those right away. If not, we have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So we can all probably agree that within the last 5 to 7 years, the industry has changed a ton. And so Mary Beth Kirkpatrick, who was one of the founders of Gaidge, put this together and really kind of take a look, hey, what did practices look like and what do they look like today? So if we start to take a look at the practices, right, we had 1 to 2 owners, 1.5 offices, not a huge staff. Treatment times were taking, 26 to 30 months. A lot of our staff had stuck with us for a long time, right? They'd been with us 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We were generating about $1.5 to $2.5 million of revenue. We were running around a 45 to 55% as far as overhead goes, and we were pretty profitable. But what's gone is we've started to see a shift, right? We've started to add new practice owners. We've started to add de novos or building out new practice. We're actually doing practice acquisition. We have a lot more staff, and that staff is actually the retention that is shorter, right? We're not able to hold on to staff because we're not just competing with orthodontics or the orthodontists down the street or dental offices down the street. We're competing with the Amazons, the Costcos, the other people that can pay and are paying money to be able to pull these people in. So that staff retention has become a little bit more difficult. We're working fewer days, but we're driving more revenue. But with that staff increase and some of the technology increase, we started to see our overhead as a percentage increase. So how are we managing that? So as the market starts to change, how are we managing our practices with some of the market changes that have happened? And we're going to talk about a few other market changes here in the next couple of slides. So some of the data sources that we get and how we're able to gather some of these market trends. So I think it's really important to understand, hey, what's happening within my own organization, but what's also happening within my region, within the entire, US or whatever that area might be. Because it's easier to change a lot of things within our practice, but if the market's really driving that particular data set, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. So having access to that information is going to be really, really valuable. So when we think about data, we want to go beyond the data. So running a daily report, being able to get access to that information on a day or a month, that's a stamp in time. We want to understand within that data, what is it telling us? I want to understand, where am I doing well within my practice? Where am I not doing so well? Really maximizing on those strengths. What are the things that we're doing well, and try to minimize some of those weaknesses. A lot of times what we really try to focus on is, how do we turn our weaknesses into strengths? And that's really difficult. So how do we maximize the things that we're really, really good at, and then minimize some of those weaknesses that we have that may be driving some of the trends that we're not looking for. But identifying those trends is going to be really important. We don't want to just look in that stamp in time. We want to understand 3, 6, 12-month trends, so that we start to understand, are our best practices working within our practice? And if not, what can we do to create some action plans to be able to minimize those weaknesses, but really, again, take advantage of those strengths as we look at those things. So again, data is really important. Getting access to that information is really important, but being able to analyze that information quickly to make decisions as we go forward is really important. But then also having access to that information as we move forward, so we can course correct. Nothing's linear when we make a decision, right? As we make a decision, we need to go access those data points to say, are we doing well? Are we not doing well? What do I need to course correct? Because over time, right, we're going to start, because we're never going to get to that point where at the end of whatever it is, a year, 18-month period, and look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have done X by managing the information that was available to me at that time. So at Gaidge, little Gaidge plug, at Gaidge, we are 90 plus KPIs we're pulling on a nightly basis. We do build in benchmarks within the platform. That gives you the ability to understand not just what the data is telling me, but am I healthy or am I not healthy in that specific area of my practice? I can check on those benchmarks, but I can also do some industry comparisons. I can go in and say, well, what's happening within my practice? Let me go check and see through our comparisons module. I want to understand what's happening within my region or within the US when it comes to my practice versus other practices. So it gives a lot of information to the practices to be able to make some of those decisions that we just talked about. So we'll talk about this here in a little bit, but how many of us have worked within an elaborate spreadsheet that a consultant made, that somebody that's really, really proficient in Excel has created these really elaborate spreadsheets? And you got to plug that data in. So what we've done at Gaidge is we've really automated that process to be able to understand and get access to that information, and then leverage that information very, very quickly. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to have that information, but we want to get back to our patients. We want to be able to give our patients that really, really great patient experience. We don't want to be doing too much when it comes to pulling reports and running all that information and then building all the pieces behind it. So Gaidge really supports in that, in automating that data collection. We do have integrations with the big practice management systems. So these are the practice management systems that we are integrated with. So we have CareStream, which is OrthoTrack, Dolphin, TOPS, OrthoFi, Ortho2 Edge, and Viewpoint, and Cloud9. Okay, so those are the integrated partners that we have within our Gaidge Analytics platform. Now, we do have a new product that's coming out, and we'll talk a little bit about here in a minute. Actually, it's been out about a year, so it isn't coming out, which we don't need those integrations to be able to utilize the tool, but we'll get past that, and we're really focused on the Gaidge Analytics platform today. All right, so let's take a look at our market performance. So Ryan Monahan, our CEO, myself, we do some speaking, and what we want to do is give you an understanding of what's going on in the orthodontic market, okay? And so first off, what we want to do is kind of understand what's going on with the orthodontic patient journey. So we've developed this orthodontic patient journey just to give you an idea. Hey, what are we managing on a day-to-day basis when it comes to our patients? So if you think about a patient becoming aware of our practice, considering our practice, right? And then they make that purchase. So we get them in the exam room, we recommend treatment, they decide to move forward with treatment, they finish up treatment, they get into retention. That's an entire patient experience we want them to go through so that they become advocates that drives it back to that awareness through word of mouth from our happy customers. But as we go through this, these are all the different potential touch points that you have with your customers or your patients throughout this patient journey. Then you add this and you multiply it times 200, 300, 400 patients that you may be starting in a year. That becomes a lot that you're having to manage. So I always want to give kudos to the practices, because you have a lot going on within your practices. We talked about all the change that's happening in the evolution of the orthodontic community. There is so much that's going on. How are we utilizing technology? How are we utilizing tools to be able to drive the efficiencies within our practice to manage all of this, right? So it becomes a lot. So really wanted to take a look, and I get a lot of really good feedback around what this orthodontic patient journey is and looks like. But again, kudos to you as an orthodontic community, because there is a lot going on in a practice. So if we start to think about that orthodontic journey, how do we get them in? So, there's a lot going on. Really what's starting to happen is we're starting to see a shift, right? We're starting to see a shift around what's out there and how do I make my decisions. And we'll talk about some of the income dollars that we want to be able to spend some of our dollars on. But if we take a look here, the US, a total addressable market in orthodontics, potentially, if we have 330 million US citizens, the estimated population needing orthodontics, roughly 100 million. Let's say that number's high, depending on anybody that you talk to. Let's say it's 50 million. Currently, we run right around 4 to 5 million starts on a per year basis. We may be running up a little bit more, right, with a few more people that are actually doing orthodontics. But if we're running in that $5 to $6 million range, what's going on with that delta, right? That 95 million patients that actually may be needing treatment. So what we're finding is they either are unaware of what's available out there, and I think we're doing a really good job of helping potential patients be aware of what's available. They don't care, right? It's okay. I'm okay with what my lifestyle is and how my smile looks, or we can't afford. And again, the secondary piece of that is, how are we adjusting to that can't afford? Are we giving financial options for patients to be able to move forward and make decisions based on the needs and what they want and their financial situation? So if you think about the market, it's changing rapidly, right? We can put any one of us in the middle here. You've got shifts that are happening, lower birth rates, as Chris Benson talks about quite a bit. It's been kind of going on for a long time, but that doesn't mean that those orthodontic starts should start to shift, right? Can we get access to those 95 million potential patients that don't have orthodontics? How do I adopt AI? We have, like we talked about before, staff shortages. So if we think about the last 5 to 10 years, not just what our practices look like internally, but externally, there's a lot that we have to manage. And again, going back to that patient journey, how do we create a really, really good experience for our patients? Because those patients are actually utilizing, or we are fighting for, this potential $10,000 of a disposable income that we have on an annual basis. So if we look at that, that's a big deal that we need to start to understand. We're not just competing with necessarily the orthodontist down the street. We're competing with any experience that they want to spend that disposable income of that $10,000 on. So creating that really nice orthodontic patient journey, what do they go through? How are they willing to talk about that to others that may be in need of orthodontic treatment? That's something that we have to think about as we start to think about our practices. So we were able to pull some orthodontic data, and Ryan's been getting a lot of feedback when he's been doing some of his webinars and speaking events, and me too, around not only what does it look like on an annual basis, on a year-over-year basis for the US, but regionally, what does it look like? So all of our data is broken down not only in the US, but we also break it down by the 8 AAO constituency regions. So you've got USA, Greater Lakes, Meso. So you've got all 8 that are here. Now, as we start to take a look at this, let's just take a look at this far left-hand column here on our US change. So we're up for the year through July, we're up 4.5%. Net collections is up 3.5%. This is a really healthy number at 108%. So our net production versus net collections is up from where it was on a year-over-year basis. Our average contracts are creeping, right? So we're going up a little bit on a year-over-year. Here's where we want to get to is we want to start to continue to see this growth in our new patient adds, but this number is starting to creep down a little bit on that, converting that new patient into an exam. We typically see it at 80%. That number is down about 2 points this year. And then here's what's going on with our aligner starts and our total share of chair. So as we start to take a look at it regionally, what does it look like? And so what we did is we did a stoplight chart. So red meaning we are well below average as compared to this left-hand column with the US. Yellow meaning we're within range. We're still a little bit below, but we're within range of what that data says. And then green is saying, hey, we are well exceeding what's going on. So as we start to take a look at this, take a look at your region and start to see what's going on, not just on a national basis, but look on a regional basis on what's happening. Couple things that stand out, right? We're very strong in the US on new patient adds, our net production, net collection, exam starts all up 5%, okay, in the US. Now, the MSO, the NISO, and the SAO are outpacing the US, the new patients completed exam starts. So you can kind of see what that's going on. So we're doing pretty well when it comes to adding those new patients to our software, okay? One of the regions I wanted to call out here is that you see here that we've added 16% more patients in the Rocky Mountain region, but we are doing, as far as the total patient exams, we're actually down from a year-over-year basis. So that number, that's a huge number that we talk about. It's one of our biggest metrics that we want to take a look at, is that in that leaky bucket is what is our conversion from adding a new patient and getting them in for an exam. There's 2 conversions that happen in every single start. If we don't get them in for an exam, we can never recommend that treatment. And you can see here, we're getting patients to come in the Rocky Mountain region. We're just not converting those to new patients exams, which is going to in turn hurt our starts, which you can see here. They're one of the regions that are red when it comes to the total net production, net collection. And then we're taking a look at some of the other data here, kind of a aligner share of chair. All of the regions except for 2 are actually below that 25%. So kind of maybe seeing a bit of a shift. We started to see a aligner share of chair nationally right around 28-30%. It's kind of crept toward that 24%. And you can see some of the regions that are really taking on that aligner piece. The NISO and the PCSO at 27% and 37% as we start to take a look at the data. So super interesting piece of data as we start to look across all of the different regions within our Gaidge dashboard. So the next part, it's going to take a couple minutes here. We're going to start taking a look at our rates of change model. And what this is this is taking a look at a 3-month versus a 12-month rolling average. And what's key here is what you want to be able to look at is it's very, very healthy when your 3-month rolling average is tracking above that 12-month rolling average, meaning we're looking and we're saying it's pretty positive when it comes to what the industry looks like. So if we take a look at this back to June of 2018, right, we were pretty flat, kind of going back up and down. You see those huge spikes that happened during COVID, where we were getting our incentive checks or the checks that were coming our way. You can see those big spikes that happen. But what's really positive and what we're starting to see from probably back half of 2023 through June of this year, our 3-month rolling average is trending above that 12-month rolling average, which really indicates a nice health to the orthodontic industry. And all up, if you look at it, we are right at, if we're looking at a compounded annual growth through 2018, we're looking at it above where we were in 2018. So the health of the industry is really starting to get back. We saw our big spikes that happened in late 20 through 2021. But if you take a look at these numbers, and I was looking at some net production numbers, some net collection numbers all the way back to 2021, and we're right in line with those really, really great years that happened in 21. So I think we're really, really healthy. And when we start taking a look at the last 3-4 months, even all the way through July of this year, I think we're in a good spot to finish out 2025 in a really, really great space. In addition to that, we were taking a look at our liner rates of change. Now, we have seen those total liner starts start to creep down a little bit on a year-over-year basis. But if we're looking at this over the last year, we're starting to see those aligner rates of change started to shift a little bit. And you saw the specific regions that were actually taking on those at some higher rates. So it's just some interesting data to take a look at and kind of take a look at what's happening within the industry. So at this point, why are we looking at KPIs, right? Why do we want to understand what are the key metrics that are driving our practice, that are driving our businesses? We not only want to monitor the health of our practice, but again, as we make course corrections, we want to be able to measure that progress. And once we measure that progress, how are we doing? And how do we course correct as we start to get to the goal that we've set for our company and be able to say, okay, are we doing well? Are we not doing well? What are the problems that we're having? Why are we having issues? Or why are we successful in getting to those goals? And analyzing that not over month, because it's hard, right? We want to be able to manage it over 3, 6, 9 months and stay really, really diligent into those processes and allow some of that to flow out so you can see what success looks like if we're able to drive toward those goals. So with that being said, I'm going to pause here, make sure that we don't have any questions. And I'm going to actually jump over to our Gaidge website, and we're going to take a little quick deep dive into the software.
No questions right now, Jake.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So a couple of things that I want to talk about. We're going to go over some data, and I'm going to talk through it. But we get this question a lot, right? We probably have a lot of Gaidge users, non-Gaidge users, but a lot of Gaidge users on the webinar now. How do I look at all this? This seems like a lot. I'm looking at 90 KPIs on a daily basis. That seems like a lot of information. So the way that the website was set up was for you to be able to come in, get daily access to really quick pieces of information. And if I need to take a deeper dive, I want to take a deeper dive. So when you log into Gaidge, and we're going to look at one of our demo sites. When I log in, this is giving me access to what's called the dashboard. And the dashboard is giving me an idea of what's going on within the current month that I'm in. So right now we're in the month of August. So far this month, if I look up here, we've added 88 new patients. We've done 92 exams, 83 are child exams, 9 are adult exams. And we have 69 future exams. Now, what is all this telling me? The 92 exams, if I think about that, we've done more exams than we actually added patients. When we think about the July summer months ending and we start to see the kids going back into school, we want to get them in. So we're doing a ton of exams before they get in and get back to school. The second piece here is this. If you're looking at this and you're on Gaidge, this 69 is an important number to take a look at. It's a nice forecasting number to say, what does the next month look like? Now, when I see this number down 31%, and now that's a trending number. That's saying if we stay on the same pace through the end of the month, we're going to end up right at 31% down that we did the year before. So that's important to understand what that number means. But if I'm looking at this and say the number's really, really high, really low, I want to understand where those are, how far out are those future exams, and how am I managing those, right? If it's a really, really big number, are they way out? Because these are exams that could be happening within the next 6-8 weeks. As I start taking a look at my origin of starts, we have 61 starts, 33 from Zan, 19 from pending, 9 from observation. And I always want to understand as a percentage, right? Now, we may be trending up at 29% for observation, but I'd love to see that observation number be 20 to 25% of our starts. That seems to be the sweet spot within our practices that are driving the growth that we're looking for. Our average contracts here at $51.94, that doesn't tell me a full story. I want to understand what is it per case fee or treatment type that I have. So brackets and wires, aligners, phase 1s, phase 2s. Immediately when I pop in here, I want to understand what's going on. Are we doing big discounts on our aligner cases, right? So the case fee, the contracts amount may look like they're going up, but if I take a deeper dive and sit here, I want to understand why our aligner fees are down 18%. So going to talk to TCs, are we actually presenting fees or are we giving discounts to be able to drive those starts? We want to make sure that ASP stays there or that average sales price stays where we set it because we set it for a reason. Most practices I talk to could probably tell me how many starts they do on a month over month, but we want to understand that mix. And not just to understand, hey, am I doing aligners versus, like what's resonating with the patients that are coming into my practice? Am I starting to see a few more aligner cases come my way? Or am I starting to see a few more bracket and wire cases that are saying yes to treatment? Is it adult? Is it child? I want to take a deeper dive and understand exactly what my mix looks like. Here's our case acceptance. We do highly recommend setting goals. So as you go through this, here's our net production, net collections for the month, for the year. When I get into our schedule efficiency, this is an important tab to be able to take a look at. And these are all non-revenue driving appointments. So our patients that are over their estimated completion time, okay, this on average Gaidge is about 27%. The highest it's been was through COVID, right around 31, 32%. That's a pretty high number. We'd love to see that number right around 10 to 15%. That's kind of the sweet spot with our over ECDs. No-show percentage is high for this practice. Repair visits are a little bit high, even though the shows are down, and then retention visits. And essentially, I'm going in quickly, and I want to see if my production's outpacing my collections on a month-over-month, which means that my AR is probably going up. And this is really, really important. As I think about it as a financial coordinator, I want to make sure within my AR, I have a very, very low delinquency level. All right. So,
Hey, Jay,
yep, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, but we have a question for you.
Yep.
What does Gaidge do to bring data truly representing our market, nations, and regional? I would assume most of the Gaidge users are heavily invested on data. Do you think this point could skew the data?
So the skewing of the data, these are all real practices that are on Gaidge. Every single one of our customers has access to that regional data that we discussed, and I'll show you here. So if I'm gonna, and I'll do this really quickly. So on our production and collections, for example, let's say I want to go in and I want to understand what's going on. Here's my practice, and I want to understand what's going on in a region, and I may be living in, let's say, the PCSO. I want to go compare that. Now, I have the ability to go in and compare. If I'm a 3-location practice and I want to compare it to a multi-location practice, I can pick single owner with associate, multiple owner. I can kind of pick what type of practice I want to compare my practice to. And then I can go in and I'll just do a side-by-side comparison, to the PCSO, for example. Now, this is a 3-location practice. I can go and say, hey, here's what my data looks like versus all the single doctor owners that are on Gaidge within the PCSO. And so this is all real data that's coming through the Gaidge platform. Now, our customer base is right around 900. We represent about 2,400 locations. So is it representative of all, the entire North American market? No, but it is a pretty good end value when you start to think about some of the trends that are going on within the marketplace. And it tells a pretty good story around, what's going on in the orthodontic community. So I hope I answered your question. So as we take a look at this, like I said, we were on this for about 3 or 4 minutes, but this gives you an idea around what's going on within my practice. In addition to that, we have our progress report. And within our progress report, I can actually see what I did yesterday, what I've done for the month, and what I did same month of last year across all these key metrics. So some best practices. Some of our practices use this data to do morning huddles. Hey, I want to review this with my team, or they'll use this progress report. Now I get this feedback. I don't want to show all the dollars, the cents. I just want to keep the true metrics around how we're managing our practice. You can turn all of this on and off for specific logins, and you can create as many logins as you want. And so really empowering your team members to manage the data within the practice. That's something that we've created within Gaidge to give you the logins. And then when they log in, they only see the metrics that the doctor, the office manager want the specific employees to be able to see. All right. I'm going to pop over to our summary tab here. And what we're looking at here, and I'm not going to go into all these metrics, I want to be able to see, and one of the things within Gaidge, and we talked about this, is benchmarks. And we want to have visual cues. We want this to kind of give us business insights around what's going on within our practice. So you'll see the reds, the yellows, and the greens that are going on with here. Now, the big ones here, you've got your 11% here, you've got your 9% in yellow. So this is a benchmark. And this benchmark, we do not want more than 7 to 9% of our overall net production to go to either discounts or write-offs, right? So as we look at this data, we were doing pretty well on a year as through a year-over-year basis last year, but we started to creep up this month, and we're a little bit higher through this year. Okay. I typically go over here to our summary tab, and I want to understand, hey, how am I trending through July? We just finished up July. So I may go here and quickly try to analyze exactly, hey, we're trending up on a year-over-year basis. All right. Here's our net production, net collections, our accounts receivable. I see our dollars and our delinquency percentages are very, very low. So kudos to the financial coordinator, whoever's managing these dollars. Contracts, here's our average contract, but I really want to see what's our average contract based on specific treatment types. So you can see here our average contract's gone up, or excuse me, gone up a little bit. That's a pretty good percentage. We like to see that number go up a little bit. But you can see here across all the different treatment types, we're headed in the right direction. Really what I like to go in and focus on is how are we managing our new patient funnel? And this is a lot of information that we're going to be able to take a look at. So how many new patients through the first 7 months of the year have we added? So if I look at Fred's practice, they've added 2 fewer patients. So they're pretty flat when it comes to our new patient add to exams. Where their success is coming from is, look here, their total number of exams have increased by about 150 total exams. So really buttoning up that process has really, that new patient add to exam ratio has really added a lot of new exams within the practice. And then the next thing I'll probably scroll down to is our total number of starts. And you can see here, we're actually down on the total number of starts. So we're doing a good job at the front desk of getting them in and getting them and that handling that new patient process. But our case conversion number has actually trickled down to where we're not getting as many starts as we did on a year-over-year basis. So those are 2 things that we can look at. Now, what we might do is we might look here and look and say total number of patients. Oh, we're pretty flat here, and our total starts are actually down a little bit. You might want to give a nice kudo. That new patient process is looking really, really healthy. Why are we able not to convert our patients, right? We're not getting the case conversion that we're able to get to, right? You've seen this big dip that's happened within this practice over the last 2 to 3 years, from 79 down to 73, 63, all the way down to 54%. So that might be something that we take a look at. Now, going back to the numbers that we had before, I may, as I'm taking a look at those starts, I may see where a lot of these starts are coming from and where are our gaps, right? So we think about our 3 buckets within our practice. We can get starts from the exam room. If they leave, right, if they need to go talk to mom or dad, what's our pending protocols? And then are they driving starts? Are they driving starts from our exams and our pending obs? And are we doing a good job of getting those starts from our observation program? And if we start to take a look at it on a year-over-year basis, right, we start to see we're not getting those specific starts from obs. We are actually doing a better job of doing our follow-ups, probably because we have more exams that we've had historically, but we're not doing a good job of getting those starts from the exam room and getting those starts from observation. And if I'm looking at the total number of starts, I'd love to see that number be a lot higher when it comes to our total observation numbers. So what can I do now? I'm not going to go over all this. A couple things that I can do here is say, okay, if I'm trying to forecast out the year, I can come here and go, all right, I'm about to finish up Q3. How am I trending on a Q3? So we're about halfway through Q3. What am I looking like when it comes to Q3? I can go compare those apples to apples. Now, if I start to see this data come down and I go, hey, I own 3 different locations. I want to understand it not from a location level. So I can go to each one of the locations if I want to and take a deeper dive, or if I want to quickly see what's going on within the practice. And we were just talking about those performance numbers, right? I may want to look and see where I'm struggling. Bedrock being our biggest practice is we're having the biggest dip in our total number of cases in our percentages case acceptance. So this, I may want to go talk to whatever's going on in Bedrock and what's happening within our entire patient journey, that why we're getting below 50% case conversion on all the total number of exams that are coming into our practice. So again, I can take a look at this and then break it down individually for each location. And if I see a number that looks really, really healthy, what are they doing correctly? What are the strengths of this Holly Rock practice that we may be able to take over to this Bedrock practice to kind of see what's going on? Because this number here can drive exponential dollars as I start to take a look at this information when I'm looking at our Gaidge platform. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to our reports tab. Now, all of our data is broken out into 6 key categories. All right, we've got our production collections, AR, exam starts, OBS, schedule, and our treatment efficiency data. I'm going to start off in our exam starts. I'm going to show some key metrics here. I'm going to start off in this exam starts tab here. So within our exam starts, what am I looking at? So if I'm ever looking at a graph within our Gaidge platform, I want to say, what are they telling me? What is going on? I can click on this little question mark. It's going to give me a full description around what's going on within that graph, what the formula is for our benchmark and what our benchmark is. Couple key things to look at here is, do you see these little caution flags? These are good indicators around an area where we may be struggling as compared to a benchmark. Now, if I look at this practice, we have 3 months where our new patient to exam ratios look pretty good, or we're below, but they weren't that bad, right? They were just below 90%. So this practice does very, very well there. I may go to some other areas of our platform and just go, all I'm going to go do is I'm going to look for a caution flag that is trending for 6, 9, even 12 months. That may be something might want to put a hyper focus on. So what we're looking at here is with total patients, we can kind of see what we did the same month of last year. If I really want to focus on that new patient ad, I can turn things on and off. If I want to go do a comparison, like we showed before, I can do that. And if I want to see the data within the platform, right, or within the graph that I'm looking at and see what those exact trends look like, I can see that within the software. Okay. Now I'm going to come here. Here's our treatment starts details. Now you can see here, now if this practice was trying to trend, you can see that they didn't have as far as a total percentage of the same day starts, they're trending right about 25 to 30%. Big on bracket wires. All right. Then I want to take a deep dive into our child starts versus adult starts. So what's the mix of my child versus adult starts, appliances versus aligners? Then what we've done is we've broken out your case acceptance by case acceptance. Now, adult case acceptance, that 211. Now, again, if we're taking a look at a number like this, now it's total starts versus exams. That may be an anomaly that's happening for this month. We can go take a look at the aggregate data and see what's happening there. But I might want to take a look at what's going on with our child starts. So the majority of our starts are coming through the software or coming through our practice or child starts, and we're trending right at 48%. So again, let's go and understand what's going on with those case conversions. And then looking here, if I look here in our observation, I'm not a big fan. Like, I'd love to see those numbers. We're at 15%, 10%, 9%. What can I do? Do I have somebody that's managing my observation program? And I may immediately go here and go, all right, I'm switching over to this observation program. I want to understand what's going on within our OBS that's driving those numbers. We're not getting a ton of starts out of those, which is a big part of our practice, right? That's that low-hanging fruit that you spent the money to go get them into your practice. As I'm looking at this data, one thing that stands out to me, first of all, is we're not seeing enough. We're well below 10%, right? 7, 8. But this number here, of our total of 349 observation patients, we haven't seen 229 of them in 12 plus months. So if we haven't seen them in 12 plus months, there may be a problem. They'll probably be outside of our system. We need to clean up this observation program so that we can get hyper-focused on probably these 11 to 14 and 15-year-olds, this 200 plus, that may be ready for treatment. So really, really, really strategic, and someone that owns this entire process, right? That growth and development process, that process to be able to manage our observation patients, you'll reap the benefits if you really get hyper-focused on this observation programs. I'm going to go over to our treatment efficiency tab. And we've done a lot of research and kind of taken a deeper dive and started taking a look at what does treatment efficiency mean to our practice. We were talking about some forecasting tools, right? Trying to understand, how do I forecast? What does the next month, 2 months, 3 months look like within my practice? Those future exams are going to be really important. Like, what is that? How healthy are we in those future exams? The other tool I want to look at, or the other metric I want to look at, is our starts per D-band ratio. So we want our starts per D-band ratio to be about 1.2 to 1.3. Now, is this practice unhealthy? Not 0.9, 0.9, 1. They're doing okay, right? Our starts, our D-bands are actually trending higher than what our starts are. And what does that mean? And so why is it important that I take a look at this? So if I think about my orthodontic practice, right, it's kind of like an assembly line. Okay. Once we get patients off, we need to get new patients on. Okay. Now, if I take a look at my starts per D-band ratio, let's say my starts per D-band ratio is 1.1, 1.2, looks decently healthy. But what I'm noticing is that my D-band number, let's say my D-band number starts to decrease, right? My D-band number is decreasing while my starts are staying pretty flat. That tells me a story that we're not getting through treatment. We probably have a ton of patients over their estimated completion date. Our treatment efficiency is not where we want it to be. So we have a lot of patients or widgets on our assembly line that are bogging down our schedule. So it may be tough, and we may go look at those future exams and are they pushed way out. So that's one scenario. Another scenario with the same 1.2, let's say our D-bands look pretty healthy and our starts per D-band, meaning our starts are starting to increase. What does that mean for our practice? What it means is our production is probably outweighing our collections. Our AR is going up. We probably are going to be pretty cash flow. We're going to have a nice cash flow number coming our way. Maybe we look at some investment. Now, does that mean human capital? Does that mean investing in technologies to drive some of the efficiencies we're looking for? Looking at this over a 9 to 12 month period can be really important as you start to take a look at, hey, what are we going to look like over the next 3 to 6 months? Issues that happen is if we have one really strong month, we want to go spend that money. We need to look at it over a longer period of time and take a look at the metrics that are really driving that healthiness of our practice. A couple other things, we want to take a look at our value per visit. We've actually done some data that shows that 1 to 2 fewer visits is material to the practice across your schedule, across the potential income that you can make, the capacity of your practice, the culture of your practice. As you start to decrease kind of the chaos that can happen within the practice, that 2 appointments times 400, 300, 400 patients that are in treatment becomes material to the practice. And then finally, we want to understand how long is it taking for us to stay in treatment. We typically see right around 4 to 6 months where we're estimating 23 months and we're actually finishing in 27. Usually it's about 27 to 29 across bracket and wires. And this one's estimating at 20 to 25. We're estimating about 18 finishing in 22. So we're usually at about 4 months below. And so if I take a look at this number and I really want to take a deep dive into my patients over their estimated completion date, I can go over to my schedule and I can say, what does it look like for me? And I have right now, 24% of my patients are over their estimated completion date. And this is pretty common across all of Gaidge, where our biggest number is 180 days over treatment time. So there's 2 potential scenarios that are happening there. One is we're way underestimating our treatment. 2 is we are not taking those patients when we finish treatment and putting them into a retention. So the importance of data and the importance of making sure we have really accurate data living in our practice management system is really, really important. And when you onboard with Gaidge, we do an entire data foundation. We do an entire walkthrough analysis of what your data foundation looks like. So we get good data going from your practice management system over to Gaidge. So it's super important, whether you do that with Gaidge or you do it on your own, highly recommend making sure that that data is super, super clean. So I talked a little bit earlier, we're doing a little plug. We did roll out our Gaidge Consult Manager last year. We've added about 350 new clients to our Gaidge Consult Manager platform. Really what we're doing is we're managing that new patient flow. So patient comes in, we get those forms out. We have a checklist of items, comes over. We have a whole case presentation format, the ability to use a slider bar to kind of get that financial commitment from the patient, get that contract, whether you want to send it out and get it digitally, have them sign from home. And then we have also added a payments platform where we're taking that initial down payment, and then we all will be rolling out some monthly payments as well. So just a little bit of a plug on some of the new products that we have out within Gaidge. And then here we are running a promo. So this QR code to schedule a time to set up a demo, right? If you want to set up a demo with our Gaidge Analytics platform, you want to set up a demo of our Gaidge Consult Manager. We also have a la carte forms, and we have an executive program. Our executive program is a tool where we can automate some of those expenses. So it's an overhead module that grabs all the information. We have an integration with QuickBooks Online and Xero to be able to grab all that expense data and compare it to your collections to kind of give you a daily P&L to be able to track. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and leave this up here. I'd love to answer any questions at this time. And I really do appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you, Jake. The first one is the SMLY on the progress report for this particular day or just for the month? How is it best to interpret the SMLY?
So SMLY, same month of last year. So we are through the 18th of the month, and I think it said somewhere around 58%. We are 58% of the way through the month. So if we stay on that same pace through this day, it's pacing out all 31 days in August, right? So it's pacing it out, saying if we stay on this same pace, we're going to end up 5% above, 5% below of what we were the same month of last year. So it's a projection of where we'll end up by the end of the month based on the data as it is today.
Thank you. Okay, we have one more. How does Gaidge calculate case conversion?
So case conversion, now I'm going to go back and I will show you. So there are multiple ways to look at this. And a couple of the consultants that I've had conversations with around the way that we track it is kind of on a CEO level. It's like, hey, how are we tracking? What is based on the number of exams we're doing? How many starts we're looking at? There's also another case conversion tool that you can get within our Gaidge Consult Manager, which is that treatment recommended conversion. We don't have that within Gaidge. Totally up to you. There's benefits to both sides. Like I said, the way that we're kind of the CEO level, kind of, hey, how are we trending? The treatment recommended is really tied back to the TCs and how are they doing and how is that individual TC potentially converting that data. So what I can do if I go to go here and I want to understand my case conversion, okay, I can come down here in case acceptance, click in here. If I have a question and it's giving me, if you're on Gaidge, it's giving you the formulas and how we do that. So case acceptance is treatment starts less phase 2. Okay, because we don't want to give credit for 2 separate starts when it comes to this formula, divided by the number of exams seen. That's how we're collecting that information on our case conversion within the Gaidge platform. All right.
Awesome. We have one more question.
Yep.
All our new patients are entered as exams. I don't understand who the new patients added are who don't have exams in Gaidge. Can you please clarify?
So the exams, so we want to add that new patient. Okay, we're getting all their demographic information and we're trying to get them to set up an exam, right? These exams completed, the exam number are those exams that have been completed. So of course you want to get that patient added and get them in and get them scheduled for an exam. The exam number within the Gaidge platform is those exams that were completed. And if you're coding them for future exams, those will show up as future exams on the Gaidge platform. Those will count as new patient adds.
Okay, it looks like that was the last question. Thank you so much, Jake. That was incredibly helpful and packed with takeaways. We want to give a big thank you to all of you guys who joined us live today, whether you're just getting started with Gaidge or looking to sharpen your data skills. We hope this gave you some fresh ways to engage with your numbers and use them to drive real results in your practice. Now, before we wrap up, just a couple of reminders. The replay is already available and will be landing in your inbox shortly. You're also going to see a short survey link in that follow-up email. It only takes a minute, and your feedback really does help us to continue to make these sessions better and more valuable for you. And if you didn't get your question answered live or you want to follow up, just reply to that email and we're happy to connect. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.